And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome the guy that is strong and cut as Arnold Schwarzenegger, our guy, Shea Taylor. Shea, what is up, man? Happy Monday. Welcome to NFC Now.
Happy Monday. Happy New Year. Thank you.
All right, so we got you in the 3 box right now. So if you could move just a little bit, a smidge to your right. Perfect. Just like that. Now we got you in there. Now, is it Shea-licious?
It's Shea Taylor. That's me being funny.
No, I like that. I'm about to say, did your girl call you that? Like, what's good?
Yeah. Shea-licious is a joke. I got that nickname from an old coworker, so it's kind of funny.
Indeed, man. Indeed. So I think a good way to start is, how do you know this guy, David?
Wow. So David and I met back in, when did we meet? So 2006 I moved here. So I guess it would have been 2009.
The first fight was 2010. So it was before your first fight.
Yeah. So I used to go to Wild Bill's on the reg to watch all the fights when I first moved to Atlanta from Kentucky. And for some stupid reason, I was like, I want to do that. And that became a bucket list thing. And my buddies and I used to watch the UFC fights all the time on TV, and then I got into training and I hit what's up, and the beauty of it is I landed with just an absolute stud of a coach, stud of a mentor, and Jeff Bedard, and started training under him, and then ended up in the hardcore gym out in Athens and sparring, and kind of got exposed to a lot of the big name guys that you saw in UFC in the early days, and ended up fighting at Wild Bill's and did it for work. And then from that point on, it kind of took off from there.
Fascinating. So you were back in the heyday, what David calls the heyday, those Wild Bill days.
It was pretty fun. Yeah.
Tell me, from you going there and just watching it as a viewer versus like you actually making the walk into the cage. Was it a ring back then? You said it was a ring, right, Dave?
Yeah.
It was a ring.
It was a ring.
It was a ring, like making that walk into the ring, man. Like, what did that feel like?
So my first walk into the ring, obviously, you can't prepare yourself for that if you didn't grow up that way. And it was kind of an aftermath for me. I didn't grow up wrestling. I didn't grow up in any combat sports or grew up playing other sports. So walking in there was in the preparation for it, being taught by Jeff and that crew and what to expect, whatever else was huge in my end. But the walk into the cage was just absolutely electric. And the fun part of it is, and I think Dave would tell you this, is, I always use it for a business thing. So I had my clients come to watch. So we always sold massive tickets to come support. And then once your name's announced, and then you guys mentioned Southside Steve earlier, an absolute gem in my world, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but just him announcing your name and then who you're fighting and whatever else, it was pretty cool. So it was really, really, really one of the most electrifying instances of my life from the very first fight.
Fascinating. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we got Shea Taylor joining us on NFC Now. David?
You also, played college baseball or minor league baseball? So you've been on big stages before.
Yeah, so it was very successful in the baseball world, but it's different. I mean, that's a team sport. When you're the individual, the spotlight's on you in front of however many people you invited to come watch you compete. You're competing in a fight. So if you, pardon my language, shit the bed, then it's an embarrassment for you as a human as well as you as in a business side of it. So didn't really think that one through until I was in the cage, and then you're kind of rocking and rolling. But it was really cool.
Well, we're going to hit on your chef part in a little bit, because I don't know if you see that I do stalk your stories all
you
the time.
Do. I love it.
I find them interesting. I've actually texted Shea many times on how to cook a steak better or whatever. What was yesterday's? What is the meaning behind the collard greens, the cornbread, and the black-eyed peas on New Year's Day?
So I'm 100 anti that. I've done it one time in my life, and it was literally the worst year of my life, and I will never do it again. So I will never cook that. So last night what I cooked was
I thought I saw cornbread and other stuff.
No. Last night was a pork tenderloin with a mustard reduction sauce, whole mustard reduction sauce with broccoli and shallots. So totally different than.
Okay. I guess I saw more than one person.
I would never touch that again.
Well, damn, that's out the window then. Shit, I thought I saw it on yours. Well, but how did you get into the cooking part of that aspect? Just Julien needs to stalk your page later. I do all the time, but you're not an executive chef. You don't do it for a living, but you're pretty damn amazing at it.
Not so food's my jam. Food and wine and just culture. So with anything food related and wine related, it's a culture experience. So what got me into cooking was honestly, and it was funny, is leading up to 2020 when COVID happened. The 19th of that year, I asked my family for cast iron skillets, and then we get cast iron skillets for Christmas, and then you roll into 2020, and now you're stuck at home the whole time. So I just started just researching recipes, researching whatever else. And the cooking game got refined and kind of went from there. And then it's like every day now you're finding something new and people are sending you recipes and people are much better cooks than I am are sending you stuff that you should try and whatever else. But I absolutely adore and love food and the ability to just enjoy what you're able to create as a cook.
There's something about, the process of cooking, because I love cooking as well, man. It's something about like just actually getting in there and just seeing something go from just a couple of ingredients to a finished product where you're sitting out at the table and now everybody's enjoying it. Can you relate?
Oh, 100%. And what I love about cooking is it's an organic movement, right? So like you literally throughout the entire process of you making something, you're able to add and subtract, do whatever else to make it be what it is. And much different than baking. I'm a horrible baker.
Oh yeah.
Baking is here's a recipe. You got to cook it. If it turns out good, it's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But and when you're cooking on the stovetop, it's totally different because you can actually make stuff evolve as you're creating it.
Indeed. Shea, earlier you said that the difference between baseball and martial arts is that, baseball is a team sport and martial arts, if you fall on your face, you got to deal with that, man. What was your record getting into the cage?
So I was 2-2 in sanctioned fights, but I have kind of a unique setting with that. And I'll probably let Dave introduce that. But I should probably backtrack a little bit. So baseball is a team sport, but fighting is also a team sport. But the individual unit is on spotlight the night you're able to compete, right? So it's only as strong. You're only as strong as the people that you train with, that put into you and invested in you and whatever else. And I had a bunch of the top guys that literally invested in my story and who I am and helped me compete. So it's both team sports, but the onus is on you when you're in the cage because it's one-on-one.
Indeed. And those 2 victories versus those 2 defeats, man, what's the difference between the emotions when you walk out?
Oh, God, man, that's nasty. So my first fight was just pure adrenaline. You did it. It was super successful, super dominant, and then you move on and you have some stuff happen in your life, and then you get back in the cage. So I actually started off 2-0, and then I lost my last 2 fights after that. The second fight was incredibly rewarding for the circumstances that were, I guess, kind of around it. And the last 2 fights were super disappointing in the sense of you trained your heart out, you busted your butt. I literally could not have put more into any bit of training or people that were around me, but that losing sucks, man. And it absolutely rips your soul out. But the beauty of that is you take that and apply it to life, and you're able to take those markers of that disappointment and what you were able to invest and see the shortcomings of that investment, and you can put that into other people. And, I guess Dave will kind of expand on this in a minute, but, my story is able to share to other people to where, man, I was in the fight. I was the man in the arena. I wasn't the guy that was on the sidelines talking about how this dude failed. I was the guy that got his teeth kicked in. I was the guy that did what he had to do and still lost. But still, I was there. You were on the sideline talking like a soy boy, and here I am going, and there's no comparison.
So I will say before we go on, there's a girl that commented on here that said, I'm a bit of a foodie. Tell Shea to accept my friend request. So hopefully that works out to the best and you have a new friend and not a stalker. But yeah, so Shea Taylor fought, what was it? Your first fight, which you won as a normal, capable human being, obviously. And then your next fight versus Joshua Cook, that 1 year lapse, you fought that fight with a prosthetic leg after your motorcycle accident. And I still remember Joshua Cook actually went for a move and pulled your leg out of the socket, for a better term, socket. And it's funny because Blake Grice was actually texting me about that 2 weeks, asking me if I had the video, because he was at a Bellator event with Andy Foster in California. So I sent him the old link to that. But That's what made me think of you, having you on the podcast now. It was a little bit relevant then. But yeah, you fought Joshua Cook and won that fight with the prosthetic leg. I think that made you one of the first 1 or 2 ever MMA fighters in the country to fight with a prosthetic leg. So I guess our question with that, if you wouldn't mind introduce, what happened with the motorcycle accident, how bad it was, how you made the decision to have the leg amputated off and go from there.
Yeah, so I had the motorcycle accident, was July 8th of 2010. I was in ICU for 15 days. And actually had the opportunity to kind of reflect on this going into the end of last year and where we are today, and just kind of like put things in perspective and write down your goals and what you're chasing and whatnot. So I had the accident July 8th of 2010, 15 days in ICU, 12 surgeries total, and then the amputation, which made it 13. So I ended up having the amputation December 7th of 2010. And just tons of therapy and pain and just crap that has happened between the accident and the amputation. But what's funny is I got to rewind here a little bit. So I give David Oblis tons of props. And seriously, man, like you deserve absolute amazing props in all of this. So when I reached out to him, I'm like, hey, man, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm about to have an amputation. I don't know if I can compete again, but if you can kind of hold the door open and let me stage my case and see if I can. So I had the amputation December 7th, 2010. I got my first prosthetic January 13th of 2011. Went in front of the fight board January 21st of 2011. And it was absolute. And I'm so prideful, I don't even have a handicap sticker. So I literally park in the parking deck at the Capitol, crutch from the parking deck to the room, make sure my leg's secure, walk in the room, and I'm in extreme pain. I'm still having to figure all this out. So I stand in front of the fight board for 45 minutes, plead my case of just allow me to keep the door open, and then they did it. So I'm like, hey, man, I don't know if I can do this again or even get back to this. And it's asked to be there. But with that, if you would, let me try, and we'll go from there. So they said, cool. February rolls around. I'm getting stronger. I'm building back muscle. I'm rolling with Bedard. I'm boxing with Jeff Trigg. So like they start to click. And it's like, all right, well, there might be a possibility here. And then next thing you know, my prosthetist is like, hey, man, we can make you a leg that has oscillating feet. We got all stuff we can do. Never been done before. So then next thing you know, I'm in front of the fight board, like, here's video. Here's what we can do. And they're like, oh, wow. Next thing you know, we go with Jeff Traub to develop a fight safe leg, which had never been done before. And then they're like, cool, we developed a fight safe leg. And then my last curveball was, hey, we want to see you roll at somebody that's a seasoned vet, which happened to be Andy Foster. And Andy absolutely beat the brakes off of me for 3 rounds. Again, I only had one fight. Andy had fought for years. He was much bigger than I was at the time. And I did not expect to get my license. And then after we sparred for 3 rounds, Andy comes back to the crew and said, hey, man, there's nothing this guy can't achieve. So he gave me my license. And next thing you know, we're like, all right, cool, we're licensed to fight. Well, then from there, you're like, well, who's going to step up to fight a guy with a prosthetic leg, right? Well, then that's when Josh Cook, the 3 guys stepped up. Well, Josh Cook stepped up, and he was the 3rd-ranked guy in my weight class at the time. Class act, family's class act. Absolutely just amazing. And I'm like, I want the best. So like, let's prove this isn't a fluke. And then we signed on the dotted line, and then we weighed in and we rock and roll.
When did y'all fight?
So I kind of gloss over that every time. Sorry. I had the amputation on December 7th of 2010, and I fought September 23rd of 2011. So I went from 136 pounds December 7th to 185 pounds by September 23rd. Stepped in the cage and was able to beat the 3rd-ranked guy in my weight class. At
185?
155. So I cut from 185 to 155.
With a prosthetic leg?
Yes. So you can't cut weight out of a prosthetic leg. It was miserable.
I don't remember. Did you weigh in with or without the leg? I don't remember that part.
With the leg, and then you can't modify it at all. So whatever you weigh in with has to be the same thing you wear the next day in the cage. And that was the scenario. So
it was less than a year, or a little over a year.
9 months.
It was 9 months between when you got the leg,
got
your leg amputated versus step back in.
Yeah.
What was your why?
It had never been done before, number one. Number two is I come from a very humble background, and my family is the hardest working people I've ever met. And it was just one of those things to where, like, I wanted to prove to myself more so than anything that, one, it could be achieved. Two, I had goals I was kind of embarrassed about it at first, which is funny to look back on, that I never wanted to walk with a limp. So I wanted to train myself to be where nobody noticed me in jeans or pants as being different. And that was a horrible mindset back then, looking back on it. And now you own it. And I mean, you very rarely see me in pants anymore other than work. But with that being said, like, it was just it was a God thing where, like, hey man, I'm giving you a platform to truly make an impact. And yeah, you were handed a weird deal. But with that being said, like, I know that you're the man that is strong enough to do this. So let's rock and roll. And here we are. And then from that platform that has been blessed to me over those years has been absolutely just astonishing for the amount of people I've been able to I don't want to say impact, but help benefit their life where they didn't have the same mentality that I did. And you're able to mentor them through certain situations. I'm crazy blessed, man. I can't explain it any more than that.
No, I feel that energy as I'm just listening to you talking. Like, a part of me just wants to, like, give some snaps, some claps, or have people drop some love in the comments, man, because just the mindset. I could only imagine, just the type of emotions you were dealing with after losing a limb, just being a able-bodied person the whole time, and then now you're losing a limb. You got to deal with that emotion, and it's for you to flip the switch and be like, hey, I'm about to do this anyway, and I don't care what's going to stop me. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to make this happen.
And you've done some motivational speaking in the last few years also, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I get brought on to talk to especially athletic groups, and then wrestling teams and whatnot, and then corporations to talk about overcoming mental adversity, and then, like, seeing how something may in your life seem insurmountable. And again, like, I hate talking about myself, honestly, but I've been blessed with so much to share with the world that it's like you have to do that. There's literally nothing that I can't do that an able-bodied person can do. And I love that challenge of somebody being like, all right, I use golf as an example. So obviously I got one leg. There are very few times where I'm playing golf, if you know anything about golf, you have indexes, where I'm not giving somebody stroke playing golf. And I totally play on that. You got two legs, you got two arms, and I'm having to give you strokes, and I will rip you apart mentally in that scenario. And that's the beauty of where we're at, right? So same thing in life. I've taken the same perspective of overcoming the stuff physically, and you apply it to life where you're going into business and you're formidable in business, and the same thing, like, people can't keep up because they don't have that same mental acumen that God's blessed you with.
With that being said, let me actually show one of the videos of you driving in golf so people can see the one leg, and I'm not going to be a man crush here, but how strong and powerful you actually are.
Oh, 16's right there. Attaboy!
How far do you hit it on average on that?
That one was about 345 yards. The furthest I've ever hit was 407.
Jesus.
Is golf something that you picked up following the accident?
I probably played about 6 months prior to the accident, and then obviously fighting was the first thing I got back into hardcore, and then after that it was like, all right, I got into golf and it became an addiction. I was lucky enough back in May to represent the United States to play in the Carnes Cup in Europe against the Euros. So it's really cool, and golf's now definitely my passion.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, Shea Taylor joining us here on NFC Now. Shea-licious Taylor. Let me make sure I get my verbiage correct. Shea, it's 2023 now. We just started the year. You said the accident happened. You said July 8th, 2011.
2010. Yeah.
2010. Yeah. July 8th, 2010. When you look back at Shea Taylor in 2010, July 7th, 2010, man, like, how much has your mindset changed since that point, man? And could you have ever imagined, you being this man that we're being joined by today?
So let me ask you to refine the question a little bit. Being the man I am today, in what regard?
In the regard of, I'm sure growing up, you would never thought that one day that your leg would be amputated. That's not something that, we grow up thinking about. It's something, we hear about other people doing, but then it's like, okay, you dealt with that. And through that experience, you've been able to not only inspire others, but now you've gotten into different realms of life. You're doing motivational speaking. Now you're full blown with golf. So like, just looking back at the man that you were before this point, could you have ever imagined that you'd be at this point? And just how has your mindset changed? Is that a little more clear?
Yeah. So kind of throw back to my childhood. So when I grew up, I was one of 6 boys in a 2-bedroom house in Eastern Kentucky on a dairy farm. So, we grew up working our tails off, right? So for me to play Little League baseball, I used to walk the roads in rural Kentucky, picking up cans, putting in bags out and back. And then my dad would get in the truck and we'd go pick up the cans. I'd recycle them to pay for my entry fees, my cleats, and my glove and my bat. That's how much I wanted to play ball, right?
Now everyone just does a GoFundMe. The millennials.
Oh man, well, that's the difference, right? So that's a whole rabbit hole there. Well, that being said, that's how I grew up, right? So that mentality was already in me. And then you get faced with adversity. So my senior year in high school, I used to co-opings. You went to school from 8 o'clock to noon. Then I went and worked as a bag boy at a grocery store. And then I went to baseball practice after school, and to have money to pay for car insurance or whatever else. It was instilled in me to work, right? So now all of a sudden you're handed this situation. Well, the work ethic was already there. It's just a matter of applying it. And the mentality was already there as a matter of applying it. What I didn't never expect was what I took for granted, as I say granted, of just being normal work ethic as other people see it as inspiration. And that's where I'm like, all right, so say I'm in the gym and we're working out or whatever, and you have no idea the battle somebody else is facing daily, right? So I have a physical, obviously, difference when you look at me. There are people that have battled, use females, for example. There's females that have battled rape as a child. They've been beat as a spouse. They have all these mental scars that are not physically viewable. They battle the same demons. I'm just a different aspect of that allows them to look in the mirror and say, you know what? If this dude can do it, I can do it. And then maybe come up and talk to me and have conversation. And then able to invest in them and say, hey, listen, yeah, you've dealt a way worse hand than I was. So how can I help you get to where you need to and look at that and overcome? Because what ends up happening is we are a society of comparison where we're on Instagram, we're on social media, whatever else, to where what we think the world tells you is beautiful, the world tells you is strong, is absolutely horse crap. So the fun part about that is those that I'm able to attract and invest in that overcome things, and then hearing stories when they come back to me, it's just so beautiful. It absolutely melts me.
So I'm friends with Kyle Maynard, and for those that don't know, Kyle grew up here in Atlanta.
And they're the same height, by the way.
Yeah, we're the same height, despite he has no legs. We're both 6 feet tall. But he is a quad amputee, basically with born with no arms and no legs. He was the first ever quad amputee fighter. He fought for the NFC for me along with Shea. But he used to tell me that almost being born the way he was almost the best gift he ever had, because it's made him into who he is these days. Kyle Maynard, very wealthy, motivational speaker, traveled the world. People look to him for advice on Oprah Winfrey, Larry King, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if he had been born as a normal, able-bodied human, he'd just be another guy making $50,000 a year working wherever, Publix or something like that. He says it's the best thing for him. It's a dumb question, but was the motorcycle wreck almost the best thing to change you around?
Dude, I wouldn't say that's ever a dumb question.
Has it opened any more doors for you? Has it been a positive?
No, it's definitely opened up more doors to be a caveat to help others. I was going to be successful no matter what when it came to business and figuring stuff out, because I knew where I came from and I never wanted to be there. And that work ethic was just instilled in me. However, with that being said, I always equate money is being a byproduct of his hard work. Like, I'm not money motivated. I'm not driven by the dollar. I'm driven by success. And the success is beating people. Success is being told you can't do something and overcoming and doing it. And then money just happens to follow that success. What I am so blessed with is the fact that I grew up being bullied. Like, my freshman year in high school, I was 5 foot tall, 88 pounds. I was tiny, right? I had a bunch of health problems as a kid. When I graduated high school, I was 5'6", 130. I graduated college, I was 6'1", 215. I remember the first time you and I ever met, you walked into my office. I'm a 155er, and you literally look at me and say, "There's no way you're a 155er." That was the first interaction you and I ever had, right? So, like, the challenge of going from cutting, which Bedard and that crew taught me how to do, and the advantage you have when you step in the cage. And I was never like a super skilled fighter. I was just too dumb to quit. Honestly, that's how it works, right? Same thing in business. You're just too dumb to quit. You figure it out. But with all that being said, I faced all that bullying. I faced all that being different. I faced all that stuff as a kid. And then now you grow up and you're a grown up and you have a prosthetic leg. You know, I used to go to Walmart at midnight the 4 weeks between getting an amputation in the leg on crutches just to see how people would look at me, so I could develop this mental strength of, they're not looking at you out of pity. They're looking at you out of, you're a badass. They're looking at you out of, hey man, this guy's rocking it, or whatever else. I had to develop that in myself. So therefore, when I moved forward, it was like, that was the thing. And it was never a negative. It was always a positive. And then I remember when we had in September, Yahoo did a piece in Yahoo Sports. So I did this rolling interview, and I think everybody's great. And literally, the interview gets posted, and my phone's dinging at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I look it up, and the first 30 messages were talking about how they hope my leg gets ripped off, I get hit in the head with it, gets thrown out of the ring. It's all this negative stuff on the internet, right? And I'm thinking, like, this is a great feel-good story. But then the internet just comes and does the internet, right? So I go to the gym that morning, and I am just absolutely disheveled. I'm like, should I do this? Should I do that? I start questioning myself. And then I pray about it. It's like, no, man, that's just those guys that are in the mom's basement eating Cheetos, that are losers, that have zero to apply to life. This is exactly what you're going to face the rest of your life. This is just a stepping stone. And then, obviously, again, kudos to you, David, for taking that and running with it and putting it in front of everybody to make it happen, because you caught hell for it too. And I'm beyond thankful for you taking that risk on me. I'm glad I didn't disappoint. And, man, I am eternally grateful for you. So I'm beyond appreciative.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's fun. I think we were on the cover of the AJC Sports back then or something like that, and a couple of Fox 5 or whatever. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's fun. When I do fights every 6 weeks, I enjoy stuff like this. This makes it more interesting, to be honest, more of a challenge between yourself and Kyle Maynard, the fight we did with him in Auburn, Alabama, where that's why the whole state of Alabama formed an athletic commission, because some douchebag promoter from Atlanta cross state borders came into Alabama and put a guy with no arms and legs in the cage to fight, is what formed the Alabama Athletic Commission 15 years ago, whatever. So for me, I enjoy these things. Like, they get me riled up and they get me excited to do something different in the cage or the ring.
So the coolest thing about that first fight back was we raised money for Children's Health Care of Atlanta for their camp no limitations to raise money. And that entire place, you could not have fit another person in that arena. And the picture that was posted after that fight, I mean, I want to say capacity like 5,600 or something. It was well beyond that. And we even had a area that we were allowed underage kids to come in to watch me compete that were separate from the group where their parents could bring them because they weren't 18 and above. I have never felt electricity in anything in my entire life like that night. And talking to other people that fought in that card, it was just absolutely amazing, the support. And then obviously we were able to win the fight and then raise money for a great organization and charity. But that was kind of like the springboard for, hey man, if you're able to do this, like, there's nothing in life that's going to ever hold you back. And that also carried over to those that were there to watch the fight, people I've interacted with since, and then, what we're doing in today's world.
Before we talk about your leg coming off, just want to show the last 30 seconds of the fight real quick.
Cook landing some good shots here, but Shea's coming out with some big punches now.
Cook landed 2 overhand rights there in a row. Shea looking to lock up a guillotine here. He might have it. If he has this, this is going to be incredible. Shea squeezing. Not sure if he's going to get it or not here in half guard. Might be a little hard. And he's down. It's all over. It's all over. Shea Taylor picking up a win. 2-0. Wow. That was incredible.
So what I noticed from that is not only you, but that's Jesse Wable doing the commentary 11 years ago. I think Josh Kozier doing it with him. Blake Grice, the Bellator UFC ref, in the cage is the ref, and then Dr. Jeff Traub, the first one in the cage to check on you. So it's funny looking at a video from 11 years later, but explain the emotions after that fight that you had right then.
So it's funny, it was mixed. The mixed emotions are the fact that he did shoot in on the leg and took it off and thought he won the fight because he took the leg off, which really pissed me off. It really did. I mean, it absolutely just angered me to, I can't even explain the level of what that looks like, right? But then after the fight was done, there was this need to, all right, that wasn't clean. I needed to fight again to show that it wasn't a fluke or whatever. So then we stepped in a weight class and fought. But then looking back on that video you showed, Blake's gone on to do UFC, Bellator, Abel's doing his thing with matchmaking. It's cool to see everybody's growth inside the industry in the sport.
What were your concerns when he did pull the leg out? How concerned were you? I remember that your doctor had to come in there and pop it back in. Well,
it was my process. So you come out of socket, there's no injury or damage to me. Honestly, it was an embarrassment. Exactly what you didn't want to happen happened in front of the entire world, because this was obviously a very high-profile published fight, and it did exactly that. But then the fun part is I'm glad that we were able to come back and regroup and win, because if it had not won, then it would have been a true embarrassment.
Do you still follow the MMA local scene at all? I mean, I know the NFC community is out there. I don't know if you even are a member of the NFC community or follow it, or if you've gotten annoyed with it, but do you even watch the local NFC fights anymore?
Yeah, I keep up with it. I have a problem with watching all that because then it makes me want to compete again. I'm an addictive personality, and then if that's in my purview all the time, then I'm going to want to try that again. And I understand what goes into that, and I don't want to be that emotionally invested in it. So I do watch, and I come watch the fights if there's a high profile fight like the Gooden and the Usher fight. But that's kind of the extent of where I'm at right now.
Shea, one thing that stood out to me in that clip that we just saw, man, was and I thought it was very interesting the way that you said how pissed off you were at your opponent for even trying you like that, was just the way that your opponent came and picked you up and tried to celebrate with you. That's what I saw in that. But you're saying it was like more or less, bro, get off of me.
Oh, in my head, absolutely. But you can't do that in a scenario because he was trying to show sportsmanship and do whatever. But the vitriol that was shared after the fight the next couple of days from his family online was kind of cute. I'll say cute. We'll leave it at
his
that.
mom was interesting. I remember his mom. She was interesting.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. But the fun part of it, again, is you had the Yahoo article come out and you saw the crap that was spewed there. And then you see that after the fight. And just life's life, man. People want to try to rip down other people to get to their level and whatever else. And I'm above that. So, but with that being said, him trying to pick me up made me want to punch him again, but you can't do that, right?
Fascinating, man. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, Shea Taylor joining us here on NFC Now. I got to say, man, before we even let you go, it's just been a captivating time talking with you, man. This is not only just for our audience, man, but for me. I'm sitting here just really inspired just by your story and your mindset. Now, throughout our time speaking, you've mentioned a lot of times that this just your life and the things that you dealt with have helped you in business. What is your business?
So I own a consulting firm called Taylor Industries, which we deal in the construction arena, and we're kind of a market disruptor, and we roll in and deal with developers and end users, and it's been absolutely just a godsend. So I started it in October of 2018, so we're a little over 4 years old now. We are to my knowledge, the only company that does what we do in the U.S. So I've been super fortunate and very blessed.
Is that something, you said you have a addictive personality. Is that something that you're addicted to right now?
Oh yeah. Back to the competition side of it, right? So, same thing in the real world, and you add business to it, people kind of do you wrong or try to screw you over or whatever. So you take that same mentality you had in fighting and apply it to business and go, not necessarily go after that group, but you go after their honey hole. And then what I love seeing is when you're able to upset somebody's pocketbook, you get the feedback. Just as I mentioned before, people going online and just like Cook's mom talking stuff trash. When people talk trash, it means you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Indeed. Have you gotten on a motorcycle since?
No.
Is that a fair question? Is that a
No. Great question. I'm trying to stay off anything with two wheels.
Indeed. My final question to you, man, is your final thoughts. What do you want to leave not only David and I, but our entire NFC community with before we part ways?
Oh man, that's a great question. I guess I'm just going to revert to a quote. I would rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. So prepare yourself for anything that you think be coming, and that's business, that's life, or whatever else. I'm a big fan of just knowledge and understanding things and being prepared for whatever. So, once you're caught off guard and the scenario presents itself, if you're able to adapt and be well-rounded, then nothing that's presented to you is too heavy.
I'd rather be a warrior in a garden instead of a gardener in a war.
Yes.
David?
Do you still train jiu-jitsu or boxing at all? Or are you completely just weightlifting now?
No, man, I'm just a fatty that lifts weights.
Schwarzenegger.
Right? That's funny you said that. No, so what's funny is I got into same thing. So, I kind of developed a decent following. So last year, or 2021, I won Muscle and Fitness's magazine's Mr. Health and Fitness. So I was in their 4 pages inside of their centerfold cutout or whatever else, and got to share my story. And it's all from just being physically fit. And in the story where God blessed me with the prosthetic leg, but didn't let you get you down. And it's just been cool to apply that to life and impact a lot of other people, because combat sports is such a niche group of people follow that. When you're doing it in everyday life and you're able to go to the gym and people see you performing, then it motivates them.
I know you said you don't watch NFC that much anymore. What do you at least think of the fighters, the mental state these days, their willpower, where they are compared to where you are?
I mean, I don't know if I can compare that. It's just so I'll go to you familiar with a guy named Sean Ryan? All right, so Sean Ryan was a special forces operator, and he started a podcast called The Sean Ryan Show, and he brings on all these elite special forces guys. So when you talk about mindset and mentality, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to because it is what it is. And you mentioned earlier about the whole transgender and what you can say, you can't say, but whatever. I'm a pussy compared to what these guys went through and overcame and what they did for the service of our country and their mentality and the stuff they saw and the just pure evil they saw amongst kids across overseas being killed and literally kids' heads cut off, put on spikes. He interviews these guys, and these guys are able to come on and share their vulnerabilities and do so in a manner of truly tears, opening up. And I look at that, and I'm like, that's a man. That's a vision. That is somebody's mindset that is absolutely the 0.0001%. So when you talk about a fighter's mentality, 1, to step in the cage, you're crazy if you really want to break it down. 2, to compete at a high level and keep doing it is crazy. At the end of the day, you're fighting a one-on-one where the risk of you dying is minimal to none. But when you're stepping into a war combat zone with 3 guys versus 100 guys, and you're able to achieve your mission and whatever else, that's a mindset. So I have no comparison to mindset. That's the mindset I compare where I'm not even close to, and that's where I want to be. And but I would never say anybody has a weaker mindset than myself.
I say that because about 6 months ago, I had a fight at Tannery Row in Buford, and Warren Thompson, excuse me, not Warren Thompson, Eddie Walker hit me up, and that's the area he lives in. And Eddie wanted to come out and give kind of a pre-fighter's speech to the guys, kind of a not only a hype-up speech, but also speech about later in life after you get done fighting the cage, how to be successful. And now's a time that you guys need to be looking at the business world, either starting your own business or how are you going to make do after your fighting career is over. So potentially in the future, we sit down and talk about maybe having you come out to a fight and give that kind of pre-fight speech to the guys, because I think you have a good way of conveying that as well.
Well, the segue between fighting and the real world is the same. I mean, you're overcoming obstacles, you're challenging yourself, you're challenging what depending on what business you get into. And Eddie's been very successful in the roofing world, so kudos to him and his family and what they have going on. And I love seeing people like that who have exited. Fighters seem to have an identity that surrounds themselves as fighters. Well, when you're able to take that and put that aside and say, all right, I'm going to take that fighter mentality and apply it to business. My identity is my family, and my identity is what I'm able to succeed with my mind versus what I'm able to succeed with my fist, because that's not applicable to the real world. I love seeing that, and that's far and few between. And people think that they're going to, even UFC, like you get into the payday. There's been several guys from the UFC and the UFC that aren't making tons of money, man. Like that's a hard road to hoe, man.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate it. So yeah, I appreciate you making time to come on tonight. I knew during kind of a slow week for us New Year's, I wanted to tell the story about Shea Taylor, let people see who you are. I think we just got another comment that said this guy needs to write a book. I'd buy it. So yeah.
For sure. Shea,
I'm actually working on that. You would not believe how hard that is to do, by the way.
Yeah. Before you dip, man, I feel like it's only right that you give us a pounds, man, on the way out.
Boop, boop, boop. There we are.
Peace out, brother. Peace out.
Hey,
Peace out, man.
Dave,
thank you for joining us.
Dave, thank you again, man. You're a rock star.
Appreciate it. See you soon.